Hello bookworms! Today I'm here with a new video, and it's a video that I'm going to be making once per season. So this video is going to be the top 5 books that I read this winter. So the books from this video that I'm going to be talking about are books that I read in December, January, and February. So I've obviously read like a ton of books the past couple of months, and it was really hard to choose only 5 of them. Like I kept thinking, maybe I can do 6, but I stuck to my rules, tried to be strict about it. So I'm going to show you the top 5 that I read, but these all were like really great books. The first book that I have to show you is one that I read in December of last year, and that is Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. I completely fell in love with this novel. I know that a lot of people seem to have had issues with it. Like I keep watching kind of negative reviews about it, and I've been really surprised because I honestly just loved it like so much. I understand that it was definitely a time-consuming book to read, but I really enjoyed all of the prose. I felt like all of the language was very just beautiful. I felt like I was hanging on every word. Like I was so invested in the story. It's a time travel story, and it follows 2 main characters. One of them is a girl named Etta, who's a musician from current day, and the other one is a male named Nicholas, who comes from a long time ago. I forget the exact time period, but I want to say it's like 1700s or something like that. The 2 of them are part of this group of people who are able to time travel, and I also really like the way that time travel was explained in this book. It wasn't very scientific. It was more of like a magical kind of time travel, and I liked that it only worked for specific people. So I felt like the rules were very strict and everything stayed within those rules. This was absolutely a 5 out of 5 star read for me. I loved it so much. Again, time travel is just something that I really enjoy in stories, and I really like seeing how it's done because it's complicated and it's really not easy to do right, but Alexandra Bracken just like nailed it as far as I'm concerned. So if you haven't read Passenger yet and you've been hearing kind of negative things about it, I would suggest giving it a try because I really loved it, and I am really looking forward to the next one, which is the conclusion, which is another great thing about this is that it's a duology, so it's only gonna be like 9 more months of waiting for the next book as opposed to another few years for the 3rd one to come out too. The next book on my list is a book that I read in January of this year, and that is Pivot Point by Casey West. Again, sensing a theme here because this is another time travel novel, but the main character, Addie, she has the ability to see into the future. She calls it searching, so once she's faced with a decision, she can see what's going to happen, and then she can, make the best choice based on what she sees in her search. So within the first chapter of the novel, her parents tell her that she's getting divorced and that she has to pick who she wants to live with, and they tell her to take at least a week to search what's going to happen and see which timeline she'll be happier in. So her mom's gonna be staying in the compound that they live in that is full of people that also have abilities like Addie does, and her dad's gonna be leaving and going into the normal world. One of the things that I loved so much about this book is that the whole story is told, one chapter is told from Addie's point of view in her mom's world, and then the second one is told, or the next chapter will be told by Addie as if she were living with her dad, and both of them would be happening simultaneously. So there are a lot of parallels between the chapters, but both storylines are really exciting, and while there's some interconnectedness between the 2 of them, there was never a moment where I really wanted to hear one story over another story. I thought that both of them were amazing, and it was just so good. And the ending and everything, it was just so incredible. I've never read anything like this before, and it was really it's like a weird blend of contemporary and sci-fi, but then it's also a thriller. The end is wow, it's crazy. So I would definitely suggest reading this. I've never read any of Casey West's other books, but now I'm very interested in it, even though I know that those are more contemporary. But if you haven't read Pivot Point, you just have to, because it's so good, so good. And I actually read the sequel this month in March, so I'll talk about that in my March wrap up. The next book that I have on my list is Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. This is another book that came out in January, and I read it in January, and it was also the January book of the month for the Spines with Wines book club. I'll leave a link down below to our live show if you want to hear spoilers, because we go really in depth when we do those live shows, and it's really fun, and all three of us really loved this one, so it was really fun to talk about it. And ever since then, me, Cassie, and Melissa have been calling ourselves Thread Sisters. But this is a fantasy novel, and it follows two best friends, and I like that they live in this really fleshed out world, and that you're kind of just thrown into it. In the beginning, it can be a little bit difficult because there's a lot of information about all the different kinds of witches, but you get used to it and you kind of figure out what's going on, and then the story is just amazing, and I'm really looking forward to the next book. This is heavily inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. I just finished watching the 3rd season of Legend of Korra, and I am obsessed. So this again was getting me from there, because I just was seeing similar things. But there were a lot of really exciting fantasy scenes in here, and again, how could you go wrong with a book about friendship? I just thought that it was so well written. It was such a great story, and again, this is one that you absolutely have to read. Number 4 on my list is Grave Mercy, which was the first book that I read in February, and this is a historical fantasy novel. It follows a girl who is a handmaiden of death, and she joins this convent of nuns and just becomes an assassin, and it takes place in Brittany in the 1400s, so it's a time period that I was really unfamiliar with. But after reading everything about it, I was really intrigued with the politics of it, and then I read the afterword by the author, who said that 99% of all of the historical and political facts that she included are true. There were obviously some characters that were added or embellished, and then also this whole death's assassin kind of thing was probably not going on back then. But besides that, everything was very historically accurate, which I found really interesting, because this was quite a story, and just to think that that could have happened to someone in that place is really interesting. But I don't want to say what it was, because I definitely don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it yet. I think I posted it in my March TBR, but I'm definitely reading the second one to this month in March, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I really love this story. I have to say I'm completely surprised that there are 2 novels in this list that are both historical fiction, because that is just so uncharacteristic for me. I usually tend to shy away from that, but Passenger and Grave Mercy just really blew me away, and they're totally making me reconsider my previous thoughts on historical fiction. And then the last book that I have on my list is Reign of Shadows by Sophie Jordan, and this is another book that I read in February. This is a fairy tale retelling. It is based on Rapunzel, and it's really interesting. The world building is just so incredible. Sophie Jordan set up this really beautiful but horrible place. It takes place in a world where there was an eclipse that happened 17 years ago, and there's been just darkness ever since then. Actually, it's probably not a beautiful place, but it had been before that. I'm just deceived because I'm looking at this gorgeous cover with all of these flowers, so I could just see all this potential. But anyway, there are 2 main characters. There's a girl named Luna, and there's a guy named Fowler. Luna has been hidden away in a tower for the majority of her life because she is actually the rightful heir to the throne, but her parents were murdered, and now she is living with people who used to live in the castle, and they are protecting her and keeping her safe so that she doesn't have a similar fate. And then there's also Fowler, who happens upon her in the tower in the woods, and they end up needing to go out together, and Fowler vows to protect her, and just their relationship, they do not like each other at first, but they develop, and there's a lot that happens, and it's so adorable. And Fowler obviously has had all of these walls that he's built up around himself and his heart because of different people that he's lost in this horrible society that they're living in. So it's really nice to see Luna, who is this kind person, kind of break through some of those walls. There's also a lot of surprises, especially something that is revealed right at the beginning about Luna that I'm not going to say what it is here because I was shocked when I read it and I wouldn't want anyone else to have that spoiled for them. But there's that. So it just makes her a very intriguing character because it's not a perspective that you usually read from in YA. But I just loved it. And the book swapped perspectives between the two of them, and they're living this society. They're running away from these really horrible monsters that are called dwellers that come out and try to attack them. And then there's also like bats that have grown to be like 4 feet in width because of just the way that the world is, which is terrifying. My only complaint with Reign of Shadows is that the end is a major cliffhanger, so it was really difficult to end the story there. I just wanted so much more, and I cannot wait. I'm really hoping that this is a duology. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I just know that it's the first in the series. But again, fantasy retelling of Rapunzel, so amazing and surprisingly short. Like if you look at it, it's very thin. It's actually like less than 300 pages, which is really unusual for a fantasy novel these days. A lot of times people can be skeptical about fantasy novels that are too short, but Sophie Jordan really like packed in all of the necessary information and everything was well developed. There really, in my opinion, was not anything missing from this. So I would definitely check out Reign of Shadows if you haven't picked it up yet. It is worth the read. You may want to wait until closer to when the next book would come out so that you're not left hanging the way that I was, but it's really wonderful, and I am definitely planning on rereading it before the next one comes out. So those are the top 5 books that I read this past winter from December to February. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing one every season because I thought that it would be fun to just kind of highlight my top books as opposed to only doing it once a year. So yeah, I really hope that you guys liked it, and I hope that you're gonna be looking forward to seeing my top books of spring. That will be posted in like May or end of May or whatever. So yeah, look out for that, and let me know what some of the best books that you read this winter are. So that's all that I have for this video, and I will see you guys soon for another one. Goodbye!